Good afternoon. Since this morning's update, there have been 2 further confirmed positive tests for coronavirus. The total number of confirmed cases of coronavirus in the Isle of Man is now 291. There have been 2,375 tests, 2,259 concluded tests, and 116 people are currently awaiting results. In total, 107 patients have been instructed to self-isolate and 11 are being treated at the hospital. The contact tracing process is already underway, led by Public Health. In total, 169 individuals are presumed recovered, and there have been a total of 4 deaths as a result of coronavirus. Over the past 4 weeks, I have set out a range of measures that we have put in place to provide financial support to the island through this coronavirus pandemic. I know that we currently have a wide range of business, families and individuals impacted by both the global and the local measures that have been undertaken to try and control the virus. Last week, I announced that the Manx Earnings Replacement Scheme had opened for business. Since the 6th of April, Social Security staff have received over 2,000 applications, 742 of which have been approved, and they will, if not have already done so, be receiving their payments by the end of next week at the latest. We expect the remainder of the current applicants to have been notified of the outcome of their claim to MIRA within the next 2 weeks. We are continuing to receive applications at a rate of 100 a day. The Coronavirus Salary Support Scheme went live at midday yesterday, and by 1 p.m. today, we had received 566 applications. All being well, we should be making the first payments by the end of next week. At the moment, there are more than 60 staff working exclusively on the salary support scheme. The staff are trained and are processing the applications as quickly as possible. We know that the phone lines have been incredibly busy. We are doing everything we can to get to callers as soon as possible. Please keep trying or contact us by email. Your request will be answered and dealt with as soon as we possibly can. The Coronavirus Business Support Scheme has been up and running for a number of weeks now and was set up to provide a £3,000 grant to a number of individuals and companies. The scheme has had over 3,000 applications. As things stood this morning, 866 applications have been paid, but processing these grants has taken longer than we hoped for or anticipated. I would like to apologise to those of you who have submitted an application and have not yet had a response. We are working as fast as we can with our colleagues in the Department for Enterprise to improve the processing speed and to get these much needed payments out to you. However, a number of requests have been refused under the Business Support Scheme. The most common reason for rejection has been a company's or an individual's compliance with tax and national insurance requirements. Let me be clear. If you have operated your business in a properly structured manner and paid your share of national insurance contributions, you should find that your route to accessing funds is straightforward. If you have opted not to pay national insurance or have failed to register your company in the proper manner with the authorities, then matters become more complicated. Even though this is a national emergency, it is not a free-for-all. Having said that, we are re-examining criteria that is being imposed, and some flexibility on this will now be applied. This should mean that more claims will qualify, and the Department for Enterprise will reassess and update their guidance accordingly. We will also reassess those claims previously rejected. I am aware that it is taking some time for support to reach you. I want to assure you that Treasury officers and our colleagues in the Department for Enterprise have and are working every hour possible to process applications in a legitimate and speedy manner. I want to publicly thank staff who have been under enormous strain to deliver these measures. And I also want to thank those desperate for money for your patience, and I want to remind you, particularly businesses, that you must also seek to use all the resources at the disposal to find a way through this crisis. I must continue to highlight that we have agreed with island banks to support up to £60 million of lending on the island by underwriting 80% of any loans extended to businesses who are currently in need. Businesses should also be carefully considering how they might operate in the future. There is much discussion taking place of what the future might look like. Now is the time for you to consider how you might change or alter your business for the better. Of course, all the measures that we are undertaking are and will impact on government finances, particularly when combined with projected losses of revenue. I have already indicated that the estimated direct cost of these interventions may be up to £100 million in the next 3 months, and that we may experience a short-term decline in expected tax and VAT revenues. In order to prepare for any unforeseen eventualities, I have written to Tynwald members today indicating that I will be seeking to amend our legislation to allow the Treasury more flexibility when it comes to borrowing money. This will be needed as a prudent measure to protect against unexpected eventualities, and I will outline the full purpose, extent and intent of the Treasury when the House of Keys next sits. 3 weeks ago, the government took significant steps to protect the island from the serious effects and loss of life that an unchecked spread of coronavirus would bring. We closed businesses, we closed borders, and we asked you to stay at home. These were tough decisions. We knew there would be an impact on everyone, but we did this for a reason. We needed to prepare our island for the inevitable challenges that the spread of the virus was going to throw at us. We did it to save lives. We did it to keep you and your loved ones safe. What we asked you to do was significant, and you should be proud of your response. You are making a difference. Calls to the 111 line are reducing significantly. Infection rates are broadly under control, and the capacity in the hospital remains good. By staying at home, you have given us time and space. You have given our NHS time to prepare. You have given us time to consider the data that we have from testing and tracing, and you have also given us space to consider the future. Over the past 10 days, a cross-governmental task force has been working to understand how successful the measures in place have been and what is needed now for the island to move forward in a manner that protects life, protects our health, and protects our futures. This is a team made up of colleagues from the Treasury, the Department for Enterprise, the Cabinet Office, and crucially, the Department of Health and Social Care. The task force has assessed the time is right for us to be able to make some changes to our measures, changes that may allow for a gradual return to normality while social distancing guidelines continue to be observed. We have considered many factors. We have analysed data, we have tracked and measured the virus impacts, and we have assessed and drawn up response and action plans. Our clinicians have considered the initial findings and provided advice and feedback. The Council of Ministers has now also been briefed, and Tynwald members have been provided with an overview of our outline assessment and plans. Work will continue over the weekend. We are completing a fully coordinated and workable plan to move the island forward that takes into account many factors, but one which is underpinned by a robust health strategy. It is currently our intention that the Chief Minister will take you through this work and our plans in detail next week. But what I can say to you is that we are seeking, all things being equal, to commence a carefully phased and structured return to work from next Friday for some sectors, including construction, associated trades, and horticulture. I want to be absolutely clear that this will only be possible if we all maintain our current discipline and adhere to the guidelines that are currently in place for the next 7 days. A failure to do so will jeopardise our plans. So, subject to the performance data next week and your continued respect of the measures in place, we may be able to take some modest steps forward from next Friday, but it is only the Chief Minister who will be able to confirm to you next week that we are in a position to do so. I urge you to pay close attention to his next appearance and to listen carefully thereafter as the Health Minister lays out detailed advice and guidance. We are doing well in the circumstances, but we must retain our discipline. The island community is displaying the qualities needed to get through this, and we need to remain calm and focused in the days and the weeks ahead. Thank you. I'll now take questions. It's Alex Wotton, please.
Yeah. Good afternoon. Yes,
afternoon.
Just to go over some of the figures, you mentioned the delay with application processing, specifically on the business support scheme. Is the delay just restricted to that scheme, or is it in elsewhere in some of the other welfare support schemes as well? How many staff are working on that? You mentioned 60 staff, but is that for the business support scheme? And how many applications have exactly been refused?
I don't have the number of businesses specifically that have been refused. As I outlined there, we have had thousands of applications, some 3,000 applications. And as I said, we are working through those as quickly as we can. I have indicated that a number of businesses have been initially declined, and I outlined the reason for that, Alex. I want to be clear with everybody because we are getting a bit of confusion. If everybody complies with the rules that have been set out and their businesses have been operated in a straightforward and compliant manner, then processes and procedures are being followed extremely smoothly. Where we are running into problems where people think their business is being structured in a different way, believe they may have been doing something which they haven't, and we've had to clarify with them both their understanding of the position and try and find solutions for them. And when you start getting into positions where you have to start correspondence or trying to understand what the position is between different departments, then things start to get a bit more complex. So as I said today, we are trying to work to overcome some of these issues to allow a much smoother flow. It hasn't been as quick as we want, but we are getting through it. We will get through it, and I'm pleased with the commitment of the officers in the Department for Enterprise who have been working on this.
So, sorry, could you just say how many staff members are working on the processing applications for the business support scheme?
I can find that number out for you. I don't have that exact number to hand.
Okay, my second question was how much of the £100 million in reserve has so far been spent, and where does that sit on government's planned expenditure for that? Are we on track for the 3 months, or are we going to have to be asking essentially for more money?
Well, we're starting to move into the figures of millions of pounds. We won't really see the full extent of this, Alex, till we've received all the applications on the salary support scheme. That is where we think the majority of the expenditure will be coming. As I outlined to you, expect that to come in to a total of approximately 30 or so million pounds per month across all the schemes, and that's roughly where it leads to our estimated £100 million figure over the 3 months. So there is still some time for us to go to see the full extent of this, but we're processing all these applications. Once we've got the end of April out the way, then we will have a much clearer idea of the exact figure, but as I said, estimated £30 million per month. So thank you very much for that. So Rob Pritchard, please.
Good afternoon, Minister. Another question just with regards to the backlog that you're currently trying to address with the business support scheme. Are there any particular sectors that are suffering a larger backlog than others at the moment from what you're seeing?
No, I don't think it's possible to define that by sector. There's a variety of businesses. As I said, we're getting through it. It's taking a lot more time because of those complications that we're experiencing, but we are getting through it.
Thank you. The second question is slightly different. The Health and Social Care Minister mentioned this week about repayments that can be made by those being repatriated and who'll be staying at the Comis Hotel. I just wondered, he mentioned the idea of exemptions for those who are on benefits or who qualify for benefits, those with student maintenance grants, and that these payments, if they fall outside those categories, can be paid back over 12 months or so. Where can this information be found, and when is the system being set up for people to start paying that back?
So that process is being managed essentially by the Department for Infrastructure, who are handling the operational details of this. I'm sure that they will make that clear at the booking system, what needs to be done if somebody can't afford to pay the amount that's being requested of them and what they need to do. But if that's not being done, then I will be speaking to the Department of Infrastructure to make sure that that is clear and apparent, and those guidelines have been issued.
So for clarity, you would direct people towards the DOI teams if they had any questions about this for now?
No, we have clear numbers that have been issued. There is a coronavirus helpline. That should be a first port of call. And numbers of those returning residents have been corresponded with now by the Cabinet Office. They have the email addresses. I would urge them, if they've got questions about that, to contact the Cabinet Office email address directly or the coronavirus helpline number.
Thank you.
So, Paul Moulton.
Hello, Mr. Cannan. Obviously, good news for you in Treasury to get the economy moving again. What sort of balances and checks will be there for, let's say, the construction industry? Some people can work with social distancing, maybe other people in other parts can't. Will it be by law that people go back, or will it be up to individual companies that they take the lead when it is given, that they can start working again?
So, as I said, Paul, I need to be absolutely clear with everybody. As it stands at the moment, for the next 7 days, we must strictly adhere to the guidelines and the rules that are currently in place.
I'm talking about after that.
I hear that, Paul. I hear that. So, next week, it will be the Chief Minister who will come here to this press conference and will outline in detail the level of detail that you are seeking in terms of what guidance will be provided to these businesses. And following the Chief Minister, I expect the Health Minister to spend some considerable time going into further detail about that. All these industries and businesses will be given firm guidance, as will the community as a whole. But it's absolutely vital that first and foremost, we continue to focus on getting through the next 7 days, because we do not want to be in a position where big spikes in the data or irresponsible behaviour puts us in a position where it makes us difficult to move forward with some confidence.
And as you said, you have had problems. There's backlogs galore. I think all our post boxes are full with people who haven't been able to tap into this money yet. You set aside 100 million. How's it looking now? How much has gone out, and how much are you anticipating to go out?
Well, as I said, I think Alex has really just asked me that question before. At the moment, we are into the millions of pounds that is being distributed out. I expect the pace to ramp up severely and significantly in the coming days. It was the salary support scheme that we expected to take the most significant or have the most significant outlay of funds. As I said, that opened yesterday at midday. We've had hundreds of applications already. We're going to get hundreds and hundreds more. I think that we will be making the first payments on that scheme next week, and we'll be in a much better position to give you a more comprehensive answer to that type of question at the end of April, if not the first week or so in May. But we're in control. We're tracking our cash flow extremely carefully. But that kind of leads on to why that I also said today that we are going to go to Tynwald, to the House of Keys next week, I hope, to discuss with them the legislation as it stands around Treasury being able to look to go to the markets to need to cover any shortfall that we see coming up in the next few months.
Sorry, I probably phrased it wrong. With 100 million, you may need the more money to borrow, basically, I suppose, is what I was trying to say.
Yeah. So, just to clarify on that, we have significant reserves. We're not short of money as it currently stands at all. The question for us will be balancing out the need to unlock those reserves and the value we would get from that versus the better value that we would get from going to the market and raising funds, particularly at a time when interest rates are so low. So this is more a prudent measure that we're undertaking and one that we will explain to Tynwald in more detail when I bring the legislation through. So thank you very much, Paul. Chris Cave.
Good afternoon, Minister. This just goes on from what you were saying about going back to Tynwald to discuss your plan of action. The governor of the Bank of England has said today a 35% hit to the UK's economy because of coronavirus is not implausible in this quarter of the year. We're obviously a different jurisdiction, but similar measures have been brought in by yourself to minimise the impact the coronavirus has on workers in the Isle of Man. What are the latest forecasts that have been given to you for the Manx economy?
Well, it's very early days still, Chris, in this whole pandemic. What we need to understand is how successfully certain parts of the economy can get back to work, when they can get back to work, and what will be the situation facing them when they do arrive back in their offices or places of work. So there's a huge number of questions and uncertainty still around the actual outlay and the full extent of the cost to government. I think it's not unreasonable to suggest that those types of figures that are being bandied around, the sort of 20 to 30% reductions of revenue are not or loss to the economy are not unreasonable as it currently stands. I think the Isle of Man remains as it currently stands in terms of the plans that we're drawing up. Should be relatively confident that we can get back with certain parts of our economy still in good health. There will be long-term implications. You can clearly see that for hospitality and tourism, and we will need to address that and understand that in the next few months. So I would suggest to you that it will be June or July before the Treasury is in a position to come forward with real confidence to tell you the exact implications of what's been happening during the coronavirus, or certainly during this period, and what we need to do from a public financing perspective to move the island forward and to embrace the new future, whatever the new future looks like.
Yeah, I fully accept they are all just forecasts at the moment. It has been said time and again that plans have been put in place every step of the way throughout the government's response to this outbreak. And I do appreciate you won't know the full extent of what we're dealing with until it's over. But are you already aware of what measures are likely to be brought in, such as spending cuts and tax increases, when life does begin to get back to normal?
Well, I think it's fair to say there is a whole raft of options that will be facing us, and a number of different strategies that one could adopt in tackling this. Yes, we are looking at, we're starting to look at those measures. We are looking at what sort of value they might bring, more broadly speaking, or the impact of any significant changes. But as I said, it is too early for us to start speculating, I guess is the right word, as to what a future budget would look like. But I do expect that certainly before the summer is out, that we will need to come forward with a new budget for the public service and the Manx economy.
Thank you very much.
Okay. So, Richard Butt.
Prime Minister.
Good afternoon.
First of all, first of all, I take it that since the Chief Minister will be standing in your lectern next week, he's on the road to recovery then. Really is.
Yeah, no, I've been speaking to him at length over the last couple of days, particularly in respect of the task force work that's been going on. He's been chairing regular meetings with the National Strategy Group and the Council of Ministers. And in fact, I was only speaking to him an hour or so ago. He's feeling a lot better. I think his period of isolation officially ends on Tuesday, and as it stands, we expect him to be back. Look forward to him being back, and incredibly hopeful that he will be standing here to deliver in detail extensive plans that are being worked on and will continue to be worked on over the weekend.
That's wonderful, thanks. Just going back to Mira, we've had comments from the self-employed saying how difficult it is to get the money, and I think it probably harks back to your comments about basically good governance in terms of what they are doing in their own companies and things like that. But we've heard of people who've not had any money at all for 3 weeks. Is this a particular area of problematic area for the people dealing with that?
Well, I think yes, in short. So we're looking to overcome that Richard, as best we can. I would point out there is the facility within the Social Security platforms to be able to get emergency funds. So people can apply for that and will get access to very basic state aid in those circumstances.
Okay, yeah, we had some comments about even social support income being delayed as well. I'm not sure how clear that is. It might just be a one-off, but there has somebody said he hasn't had any money at all for 3 weeks. So that has been a big concern.
Well, I would say if that individual could either contact, if they want to, I open my doors for them to contact me directly if they are, in that significant amount of trouble and have not been able to get a proper response. And you will appreciate, of course, that we are dealing with thousands of applications and phone calls and emails, and with the best will in the world, we can only have it has to be trained staff that deal with these matters. Just can't bring in anybody to deal with it. So we've trained as many people as we can. Social security teams are working every hour that they can to get these processed. But if people do get those absolute extreme cases, there is emergency support there. They can and they should be able to access it. But I will happy to pick up on an individual case in that extreme if that is truly the case.
Thank you very much. Just the final question,
Richard. I think I'll come back to you. I'm very conscious that it is 2 questions per journalist, and I think we have one. Amanda Cashmore, please.
Thank you, Minister. As the Treasury is going to be managing the salary support scheme, what is your intended amount of time from application to payment? As some people have waited weeks for other grants to be processed, and employees will be anxious to know they won't be facing similar waits.
Well, the first set of applications are in 24 hours. We expect to be making those within the next 7 days. So I think the answer to that, we will deal with it as quickly and as promptly as we can. What we've been doing in the last 3 weeks is making sure that the system that we've got for the salary support is as tied in and linked in as possible to all the government data that it needs. So making decisions should be, in theory, relatively quick for the 60 officers that are dealing with this. I don't want to set a specific timeline. We are obviously expecting thousands of applications to come through, and we would like to see those dealt with as quickly and efficiently as possible. We're very conscious of the fact that people need cash in these situations, businesses in particular, to pay their staff and to stay alive. That's why we are trying to oversee and administer a huge, significant exercise when you take in everything that we are doing. We've used the word unprecedented. It is absolutely unprecedented. I'm hoping that the salary support scheme works incredibly smoothly given the work that we've put in from GTS. But it does remain, you can't just rely on government in these circumstances. Businesses and individuals have got to use the full range of their skills, if you like, the full range of financial measures and packages that we've announced, the accessibility, one hopes, with their banks, working with mortgage providers, with lenders, if they need to try and defer payments to maintain their cash flow until we can get them back to work, which we're obviously very keen to do, but we need to do so in a safe and controlled manner.
Thank you. And for my second question, with COVID-19 spreading on the island, the economy has been hit hard. There are more than 2,000 civil servants working across government. Are you considering restructuring or pay cuts as the economy contracts?
I think that goes back to the earlier question about public finances. I think Chris asked me that question. So we're looking at a range of options at the moment. As I say, first thing, we have to have a proper oversight and clarity as to the extent of the impact. Clearly, we have estimates. At the moment, they are just estimates. It's important that the Treasury remains calm. We're telling everybody else to remain calm. We must remain calm in these circumstances. We're going to go forward, as I said, provisionally to ask the House of Keys and Tynwald to give us some more flexibility to consider how some borrowing in the future might help support us, certainly in the short to medium term. And clearly, as the smoke lifts from all this, providing we can get some normality back in terms of the economy, only then will we be in a position to deliver a budget to take the island properly forward. And there's a huge number of factors to consider. So we will stay calm, collected. We will do the very best we can to get as much support to people. We will do the very best we can to work with our colleagues in the Department of Health across this task force to try and take things forward sensibly. And as I said, before the summer is out, absolutely, I expect that we will be delivering a budget to take us forward, and that will answer the types of questions that you've just asked me. So I will take Richard, you had one brief one, and I missed the BBC. Sorry, apologies. The BBC. I won't take one more from Richard. Alex, sorry.
No problem. Don't worry about it, Mr. Cannan. You've been over this, so I appreciate it, but we've got to look at the fact that it will be a slow and phased return to normality for all industries. But this is going to create a big disparity between sectors, isn't it? And I know when we think about those industries which will be last to come back online, tourism, hospitality, as you mentioned, they will have missed out on a crucial summer at TT. They'll be facing possibly a devastating winter, while other businesses begin to get back on track. So we're talking about the creation of maybe a 2 or even 3-tier workforce here. So given the disproportionate hardships that these sectors might face in the future, potentially over the very long term, can you assure these businesses that there will be long-term relief coming from government as other sectors become independent again?
Well, what I will say, you raise extremely valid points. We've set out very broad financial measures at the moment. We've tried to define those as much as possible in terms of targeting the people that we think will most need that financial support in the short term. As we move forward, we're going to have to refine the support schemes that we've brought in place, get some more clarity around how we're going to take certain sectors forward and what we need to do. So the answer to your question is yes, that we are going to have to look carefully at what the government is going to do more strategically in the next few weeks. That is providing we do successfully start to get a phased return to work. And in order, of course, to do that, that also requires not just those sectors to be behaving responsibly, but it also requires society as a whole to continue to behave responsibly, to listen very carefully to the guidelines that we bring in.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And just to touch on a point which I have raised with other ministers, I just wonder what your current negotiating position is with Her Majesty's Treasury. Are you in talks? And is there a shared feeling that maybe the Isle of Man could begin to show signs of recovery before the UK?
Well, I'm very confident in the island's robust position in terms of the financial resources that we've put in place, the assets and reserves that we have, and I'm also very confident in the ability of our private sector to respond effectively to the challenges that coronavirus is bringing. Particularly over the last few weeks, I have spoken at length to a number of members within the private sector, and almost all of them have really been applying their minds to trying to find out and understand what the future might look like, how they might shape their businesses. And indeed, a lot of them are incredibly keen to input into more broadly, the Isle of Man's strategic approach going forward. Am I confident? I'm confident in the ability of this island to be able to respond, get back on its feet, and overcome the challenges that have been brought about in the last two to 3 months. And of course, one must remember, I'm talking about 2 to 3 months, but this could be with us. We may have to learn to live with this for another 12 months or so, or certainly possibly until some form of drugs are available, or in order to control, efficiently control and stamp out the virus. So there's a long way to go yet. I'm very reluctant just to talk in the short term, but there is a lot to do, and I am confident that the island has the ability to find its way successfully through this and into the future.
Just regarding those negotiations with Her Majesty's Treasury, though, are you currently in talks with them? What's your position?
Yeah, I mean, we don't have to be formally in talks with Treasury. As you know, we have various agreements with the Treasury, not least the FIRSA agreement around our VAT share. So we do speak to HM Treasury regularly. We are discussing options and issues around how the UK is intending to tackle this going forward. It's very interesting to learn what their plans are, but there are no formal plans at the moment to work alongside HM Treasury for any specific purpose, but that's not to say that's not something that might not happen in the future.
Thank you.
So I think that's probably enough for today. Thank you very much for listening, and see you all soon.
From the first deliveries into Douglas
to stocking shelves with essentials.
We're providing transport for key workers.
We're keeping you informed and delivering services that people rely upon every day.
We are keeping the Isle of Man's
essential services running.
Please help us to help you.
Shop responsibly, consider others,
and stay at home if possible.
For you, for our island, for our community, let's do this together.
For you, for our island, for our community, let's do this together.
For you, for our island and for our community, let's do this together.
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 For you, for our island, for our community.
Let's do this together.